Hello, welcome to today's collective general reading. As always, remember to use your own discernment, join with intention, and allow the messages to be received with an open heart. A quantum reminder, we are speaking through symbol and story here. Please do not rely on tarot readings for factual evidence. You are always encouraged to do your own research, especially when engaging with strangers on the internet. Today feels different. I don't know what this will be, but I'm walking with. I have it on my calendar that today is Saturn and Jupiter conjunct at 0 degrees in Aries. And it's also the beginning of Pisces season. It's interesting. I was talking to someone this morning and was talking about a vague overview of astrology. And since, as snow starts falling off the roof out of nowhere, well, not out of nowhere from here, there's something about input and output, and overdoing it on one, mixing with the flux. What did I write down just a second ago? Yeah, today is not about output, it's what's coming in. And so today, what I had planned to do for my channel, for my businesses, for my artistic practice, for creative I had so much space held open for today, wanting to gift myself the opportunity for relaxation, joy, inspiration. I'm, like I've mentioned before, working on different businesses and figuring what goes where, etc., etc. And yesterday was a really good day learning this new balanced pace. And it's not something that mimics a 40-hour work week or shift work even. It's not something that aligns with being employed by, I'll say, an entity, an enterprise. It's new. And I am placing that with faith in this new entry point we have not just reached, gone beyond. And so it's not this, oh, the change is upon us, the change is coming, the change is occurring. There's this feeling of it has happened as I'm looking at my window, and again, it's 1/3 just snow and then a bright blue sky with clear trees. And I'm seeing this branch that splits into 2, into 3, and then winds back together. No, it's not physically going back to becoming one branch. And at the same time, from my perspective, sitting here as a white bird flies by, cutting through those branches, from my perspective, it appears to be one branch. Although my reasoning, knowing, having a knowledge of how branches work is the allegory that I'll use. I know that there is more than just one, but it's about something having broken out in expansion of multiplicity, plurality is what I would say, and then having it rejoin the appearance of straightforward, straight ahead. I know that there are things happening politically in the world right now. I know that we are talking about lists. We are looking at arrests. I have numerous birds flying by. I have snow falling off. There's this crumbling of what has already been here, as there is we have a higher ground vantage point now. Some of us do. So it's this perspective shift happening in the world of there are people in basements. I'll just go with what's here today. There are people in basements looking out the window as snow falling from a roof saying, the world is ending. Everything is falling apart. Everything is crumbling. This is disaster. And there's this viewpoint of being a bird in the sky, being able to look down and see the snow scattering across the roof before it falls over the side. And now and I'll place this with Aquarius. I could be speaking that out of my ass, but I'm going to do it. There's this shift of you don't need to be a bird in the sky to have a bird's eye view. You can be sitting in a basement looking out a window and as with being sighted from above. It's at this climax point, is what I'll say. Again, I'm looking at this collage that I have over here, and there are different words that are jumping out. T-night, so I'm seeing that as tonight, today, considering what's going on with Saturn and Jupiter. Body in touch, heart at peace. So there's something about keeping in grasp with the 3D, with the world in front of with us, while tuning in, I'll say, with our heart and knowing how this roots us through our belly. And my human is just like, yes, that is how things work. But there's something in that message that I'm not hearing. So I'm just going to carry that forward and share that with you. Clowns. I have a clown doll off to the side and it's there every day. But there was also a image from, what's her new channel name? House of Scry, Steph at House of Scry, that came up on my YouTube shorts yesterday or today or day before in recent. And I was like, oh, look at that clown. Okay, this is a separate one, and then I think it's going to be cards. Yesterday was my having a plan, going with the flow, being open to it, setting healthier patterns, developing micro habits, not doing anything by force, allowing with flow. And I allowed what I've been trying to work towards to flow out of me for a few hours. And I got a lot of work done, a lot of structure I will come back to later. And I said, great, thank you very much. I'm going to put that down. I'm going to walk away from that now. I'm not going to try and pretend it's an 8-hour shift and I need to keep working on it for another 4 hours. I'm going to allow that to breathe. And then I went out and I decided to treat myself. And so I went for a nice meal, yada, yada, yada. And I went to this bar, like a dive bar, that I wanted to go to for a long time because the front door says Spirit on it. And the bar is just called Spirit. And I was like, that's very interesting. I thought it had been there for at least 15 years, which is the last time I lived here. But speaking to the bartender last night, he was like, no, it would have been a different business, but it has been here for a long time. So I'm like, okay, anyway, whatever. I must have come home on like Christmas break and seen it and been intrigued. And I have this tattoo. I got within this past year. I think I got it this summer. And it is a musical artist. And when I saw the tattoo and I wanted it, it wasn't because of who the musician was. I didn't even recognize it as a specific artist. I saw an image of a clown and I was intrigued. And I have the face of a woman tattooed on one arm, on the back of my arm. And I was like, it would be cool to have a clown balance out that on my other arm. And so I messaged the artist. I'd already gotten a piece done from him, liked his work. And he was like, oh, I'm so excited to do this. Does the artist name matter? I'll say it, this Bob Dylan, this Bob Dylan piece. And in my head, I'm like, oh, that's Bob Dylan. I know a couple songs by Bob Dylan. I know that people are very particular about how they feel about Bob Dylan. Cool, good for them. He's not someone that's ever really struck me as something to dive deeper into. But I was like, well, if I am getting a tattoo that's specifically of an artist and putting that on my body, I need to know at least something about it. And the image the tattoo is based from is from the Rolling Thunder, is it? Tour in the 70s. And I watched a documentary about that tour to kind of get a gist, because again, I said I need to have some context if I'm putting it on my body. And my reason for putting it on my body is not because of anything to do with Bob Dylan. And what I found interesting in his tour practice, appearance, performance, is he would have on clown makeup. And then as the show progressed, he would sweat it off. And so the tattoo is his face half covered in melting clown paint. And I love that. And so for me, I said, okay, I am comfortable getting this tattoo of Bob Dylan because I know that for me, this is about the blend between the performance and the performer. Performer. Why are words? Okay. I know that it's a blend between the performance and the performer. Here we go. We're getting a reading. And as I was getting the tattoo, talking with the artist, he is a big Bob Dylan fan, so knows a lot about him, and was talking about how, wow, there's just a sea of blackbirds. Whoa, there's like, and they're coming in waves. There was a big wave of maybe 30 black birds, and it filled, I'll say both of my screens, but both windows. And then they started being more and more scattered. Actually, as my arm, okay, I'm gonna show my tattoo. This is the tattoo. This is what I'm talking about. And it's interesting that my upper arms are never really in frame from this perspective. And I talk about the window often, but I don't normally frame it as a screen or anything. But anyway, this is the faded clown makeup, drippy. And I was looking at these birds, which is something that the artist had added to make it kind of blend in, because this is an old watercolor piece that's faded beautifully. And interesting how that's moved this here. The point, I believe, one last blackbird, in summary, when I was getting my tattoo, the artist talked about how Bob Dylan is known as the messenger. And this was around the same time that I was receiving messages from spirit or source of being a messenger. And I thought that overlap was interesting. And last night I went to this bar named Spirit and was talking with the bartender and said I'd wanted to come here for a long time. I'm looking for a place I can kind of just like show up, do a little work, hang out. I'm recently moved back. I'm kind of looking for third spaces in community. And he said, yeah, like this bar's been here for whatever, I think at a different location. No, it was still here. Anyway, again, the timeline was kind of confusing, but that's fine. But he'd said, yeah, Bob Dylan came here a couple times and sat in that chair over there. And he liked it because no one really bothered him. And I thought, that's interesting. Just this, and not me having some cosmic connection with Bob Dylan, because no, but that idea of accessing a space in search of what other people have been trying to retrieve parallel from that same place. It was also just happenstance, if you could say that, that 5 minutes before I had this conversation with the bartender, I was looking around and there were so many things I wanted to take a picture of. And I chose to take a picture of a sign near the window that said something along the lines of something about frequency. I'm looking for frequencies. I'm here for frequencies. I am the frequency that finds me. Something. There was this sign above the window and it caught my eye, and so I took a picture. And then not 5 minutes later, the bartender was pointing to that exact spot and saying that's where Bob Dylan sat because he wanted to come hang out and not be disturbed. And it was just an interesting circle of events. What is the purpose of this? It's not about output, it's what's coming in. There's I'll say cosmic patterning. I don't even know if this is going to have cards. Maybe cards I'll do separate. Yeah, I'm getting kind of off kilter. Again, it's an odd time right now. And it's not about making necessarily logical sense of anything. I think we're still coming off of the solar eclipse. It's a transitioning of seasons. I believe Pisces is a water sign. I'm a Scorpio, and I have a number of placements in Scorpio. I have nothing in Cancer, and I have nothing in Pisces. So the only water sign that I have that's my most dominant is my only water sign. And there's something about having so much in one and not yet having something built up in its mirror. Not necessarily mirror, not necessarily reflection, in its partner. Thinking of the 3 lines forming a triangle. Everyone has, how do you make a triangle? Everyone has their own responsibility. Interesting, as I'm looking in the viewfinder and I'm seeing how this is mirroring that. Yes. I'm gonna put this out because this is wanted to come out, but there's something about, don't worry if what you're doing right now isn't settling or doesn't feel like it's aligning or it's coming together. It's not about everything coming together right now. It's not about you manifesting, you creating something into existence. It's about, hey, if you take a breath and you look around, there's a lot of curious synchronicities, overlaps, patterns emerging. This is a time, this is where the opportunity exists for you to be observing as the wind is picking up and I'm seeing these tree branches heavy with snow waving in the wind. And they are fluttering beneath, crossing over that one branch into three into one that I was talking about earlier. And now seeing those waving branches being, I want to say being shadowed on the snow. And so there's a lot going on around you that perhaps is influencing how your shadow, your parts, your inner, whatever words you want to use, as I'm feeling something pulsate in my right hand. Something here. There's something in you that's stirring, that wants to create, but thinking of children and clowns, it might be too early for everything to come into alignment. Not saying that we shouldn't also be aiming and striving to be aligned, but there's something kooky, there's something weird, there's something different, there's something off and on and off and on and off. There's something funky, there's something queer happening here. Okay. I'm going to leave that there. Okay. If anything in this message words are slipping, resonated with you, you found interesting, you can like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to hear from me more often. In the description, you'll find a link to my Substack, which hosts the 444 Collective, a virtual ecosystem operating as a place to gather and explore together. Stay tuned.